How often have you seen your customers, your potential investors, or journalists give you that look where they go, I don't really understand what you do? Or how often have you struggled to articulate or defend your products and services against your competitors? Well, in this session, we're going to look at how you can deal with this. All that and more coming up right after this. So what is a value proposition? Before we look at that, let's look at what it is not, because it's very common for people to confuse value proposition with an elevator pitch, a mission statement, a tagline, or other sorts of phrases like that, and we look at that, how they are different. I've borrowed concepts here from Joe Wilson of the University of Toronto. Joe's been a teacher, a writer, a business developer, and a senior strategist. So he defines, first of all, an elevator pitch as a hook plus a problem plus a solution, some unique features, and a call to action. So let's take an example of a software company that sells software to the telecom industry. And their elevator pitch, and I just made this up, it could be, we undo telecom IT. Now immediately there's a hook here. It raises a question of curiosity in the listener. What do you mean by undoing telecom IT, right? So that creates an opportunity for you to continue that extra discussion. So elevator pitch again. Example, we undo telecom IT. Telecom companies are suffering from traditional spaghetti of software. We offer Amazon-enabled, cloud-based telecom IT stack. We are demonstrating it tomorrow online. Here's a link. Register to check it out or come along. So that is an elevator pitch according to Joe, and I absolutely agree that you could use something like that when you meet somebody at a networking event, but that is not a value proposition. Next, let's look at tagline. A tagline is something that we marketeers use. These are snappy phrases. So something, for example, that MasterCard uses is, some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard. Now that is a tagline. Again, it is not a value proposition. Next, let's look at positioning statement. Now, a positioning statement, Joe says, is a value proposition plus competitive anchor. So again, let's take an example of the software company. Let's call this company Bluebells. So their positioning statement could be something along the lines of, for telecom operators, Bluebells offers cloud-based telecom IT stack that takes away the pain of having to deal with a spaghetti of IT systems. Unlike Oracle, Bluebell's solution is proven in 10 markets globally. So immediately what this positioning statement has done is it has not only articulated the value that Bluebells offers to the telecom companies, but it has also contextualized it against Oracle, its competitor. So again, as we see, a positioning statement is more than a value proposition. It's not the same as a value proposition. Mission statement. Now, a mission statement is a very high-level statement. It's very ambitious. It states the purpose of your company. It's, as Joe says, it's a blue sky piece. It doesn't carry any specifications. So let's say a mission statement for the same software company, Bluebells, could go along the lines of, Bluebell's mission is to transform telecom operators into a software business. Right, so no specifications, no timelines. What does it actually mean? But it's an ambitious statement saying you're completely transforming a telecom operator into a software business. So this is a mission statement, not a value proposition. Metaphors. Now, metaphors are basically drawing a parallel. This is something that a parallel between what your audience understands today and what you are trying to explain. So for example, again, Bluebell's case, it could go, Bluebell's is for telecom operators what Microsoft Office 365 is for personal computers. basically helping people understand something new in the context of something that they have already known. So that is a metaphor, not a value proposition. Next, technical jargon. Companies whose leaders are engineers, they generally tend to get caught up in technical jargon. They articulate their value proposition in terms of features and functionalities. So this is fine only if you are addressing a technical audience. Otherwise, your value proposition will fall on deaf ears. Fancy words are something that us marketeers tend to influence. So words like amazing, revolutionary, sensational, state of the art, right? These are all words which run the risk of taking away the credibility from your value proposition. Immediately when people hear these kind of words, they start thinking, oh, this is all just waffling, it's just hairy-fairy, there's nothing substantial here. So it takes away the credit. So try avoiding fancy words. Next, one size fits all. A value proposition is not that, right? It's not you've created a value proposition, and you've taken it to all your audiences. It will not work that way. So, for example, let's say you have your commercial buyer or an investor. These people, they're basically looking for, language along the lines of return on investment, the break even, and things like that, right? They are not interested in the features, the functionalities. They're not interested in the technicalities, for example. And similarly, if you are targeting a technical buyer as a persona, then the technical buyer, on the other hand, is looking for precise test results on speed. They are looking at details on compatibility between two systems. They are looking at the details about how to integrate the software that you are selling with the incumbent software that they might already have. They want to know those kind of details, technical details. And that is where the value lies for them in their mind, right? So your value proposition to them needs to be very different. And similarly, if you're addressing a journalist who's basically interested in covering the latest news stories, for her, you need to explain how your business fits into the news stories of the current times, so that the journalist can weave a story around that and plug you in your value proposition into that story. Now, it's not just about the personas. Your value proposition also needs to be customized to industries. So if you are targeting multiple sectors with a single offering, then the value you offer to each of those sectors needs to be customized. So for example, if you are offering a CRM software to the telecom industry, to the media sector, to the utilities industry, then for each of these sectors, you need to customize and tailor the value that your CRM system will contribute to them, because they all have very different challenges that they would need to address through the CRM system. Similarly, if your value proposition is to be addressed to various business functions. So, for example, the same CRM system could be addressing the marketing division. It could also be addressing the sales function. It could also be addressing the IT department. So, within a given target company, target customer, your value proposition might need to appeal to different business functions within. So you need to make sure that your value proposition is resonating with each of those business functions. And hence, I say one size does not fit all. Next point is about value proposition being a one-off exercise. Your business context is constantly changing. And in this dynamic environment, your value proposition needs to continuously adapt. Finally, you need to have value propositions for each of your products and services as well. So far, we've looked at what value proposition is not. Now, let's look at what it is. So first of all, what do we think is value? Often in business contexts, it is simplified as the ability to make money or save money directly or indirectly. Now, Joe Wilson shows here in this illustration the other forms of value businesses add to their clients. And this is not an exhaustive list, of course, it's just illustrative. On the left here are the values that are more latent. And he says these are the ones that are more relevant to B2C companies, business to consumer companies, because they appeal more to individual consumers. While the ones on the right are more tangible and they appeal to the business buyers or B2B companies. Now, while there are exceptions like the value of newness, for example, that appeals to both markets, this is in general a very good value canvas, and you need to figure out what are the values that you offer to your customers. So now that we know what is value, let's look at what is a value proposition. Kathy Bennett of Vertical is a coach on sales transformation. And she has very beautifully summarized value proposition in 3 words: relevant, personalized, and compelling. Your value proposition needs to convey the value that is relevant to your customers. We've already covered the personalization part, where you're customizing it to the sector, to the persona, to the business function that you are addressing. And finally, the compelling part. There's this interesting comparison between painkillers and vitamins. It is said a vitamin is something you should take, but you're not too fussed if you forget to take it. A painkiller, on the other hand, is something you absolutely need to relieve yourselves of the pain. Make sure your value proposition positions your company or your product or service as a painkiller. Make it compelling, right? This is what it is about. Now, there's too much noise out there to capture the attention and imagination of a customer. So you must have something compelling they absolutely need to buy. And when you do that, then you won't have to chase your prospects. They will come to you to relieve their pain. Another really nice way to describe a value proposition is the way Michael Skok has put it. Mike's a venture partner at Harvard and a well-known public speaker and a founder as well. He basically says value proposition is what you do uniquely well for who. So this is what it communicates: what you do uniquely well for who. It's wonderfully capturing the essence of value proposition, I think, in a nutshell. And here Joe gives a very handy template to play with to develop our own value propositions, where he says company X has created a product Y for target audience Z that results in value, value, value. A very simple template that we can all bear in mind as we are articulating our value to different audiences that we address. With that, we have so far covered what is a value proposition. Now let's look at the importance of having an effective value proposition. And in my opinion, I think there are 3 main reasons to have a value proposition, a strong, effective value proposition. The first reason, as I said initially, we should look at our business as offering value to customers, not selling products or service or features or functionalities. As we saw, value can come in various shapes and forms, but not technical details. Dan Lok is a very famous public speaker. If you haven't heard him, he's got tons of videos on YouTube. He talks about effective selling practices, basically. And he says clients do not care about what you do. They only care about the outcome you help them create, which is the value. The next reason, I think value propositions are hooks that help you get noticed by your target customers. And they also help you stay memorable in your clients' minds. In a sea of competitors, it's all about winning that first look, that first expression of interest. a question from your prospect, or a reaction of curiosity, as we saw in the case of bluebells. And then sticking in your prospects' minds. If what you do is not understood, or if it's not relevant and compelling, they will forget you. And finally, and most importantly, I think the third reason, if your value proposition is well articulated and addressed to the right audience, it will click, it will set the stage for you to command top prices in your markets. Ian Lockett says, your product or service is only expensive when you don't take the time to articulate the value to the prospect enough. And I think that's absolutely true. There's a brilliant video from Dan Lok to this effect, where he's instructing his business developer on closing a sales call. The client is surprised when he hears that Dan Lok charges $50,000 a day for his services. So Dan asks, is this a question of price or value? There are a lot of people out there cheaper than us. Why don't you go with them? He says. And he says, why do you think people pay us that kind of money? And in the call, basically, the client is asking for Dan's help or advice and consultancy to double his revenues from 3 million to 6 million. So Dan says, if we can get you the result you want, does the price really matter? So it's all about selling value. Once the client understands your value, once they get it, you're all sorted.